Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Photography Evangelist here at Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you live once again on my favorite day of the week, Friday. It's the weekend, but it's also Masterclass Friday. So for those of you who are new, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you're watching the replays, I love replay views as well. So thank you for being here one way or the other. Now, if you are joining us for the first time and you're watching from wherever you're watching from, if you're watching from YouTube, if you're watching from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you happen to be watching from, you can hang out there. But if you want me to really see your chat or question, the chat that I pay attention to the most is the one at Adobe Live. So I see people like Mike and Steve and Wanan, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, and Jan or Jan, depends on which person it is. General Kenobi, Ozzy, welcome everyone. And if you're joining us from other platforms, welcome as well. But again, head over to Adobe Live, which you can sign in with your free Adobe ID, and that way you can participate in the chat that I will be looking at the most. Not to mention that I won't look at Kevin Stewart over there on Facebook saying good morning, but the Adobe Live one is the one that I'll pay attention to the most. All right, so what are we doing today? Today, if you haven't watched last week's stream, go ahead and do that. You don't have to leave right now. But I'm just picking up where I left off last week for the Lightroom Classic crash course. So I showed from the very beginning the best way to set up, in my opinion, Lightroom Classic for success for not only the first day, but for years to go. So if you want to get a good foundation on how to get Lightroom Classic set up, that's what the first part was all about. Now, we're not going to do any of that today because we did all that last week. Now we're going to get into the fun part of Lightroom Classic, which is using it, which is managing your photos, editing your photos, outputting your photos, all the things that Lightroom's good at. So that's where we're going to pick up where we left off. A couple things that I left off last week, we're going to pick up from there, but we're not going to do any of those stuff we already did. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in since I've got your attention here and I don't see any big questions in the chat just yet. Let's go ahead and dive in. All right, and let's get rid of that banner. Okay, so I'm here in Lightroom Classic exactly where we left off. We left off on this image. We were talking about quick collections, and this is exactly where I left off. I didn't change a thing. So two things that, let me hang on for a second. All right, that's better. Two things that I wanted to cover. One that I didn't, like ran out of time on last week, and then this one's going to kind of continue right into the process of collections. One thing I did not talk about last week, we made collections, which we did. We made favorite places collection. We made an Iceland's favorite collection. Then we started talking about smart collections. But the one thing I forgot to show last week, or ran out of time, was that, so Shania is asking, will there ever be a crash course for Lightroom Cloud? Yes, I already did it. How to get started with Lightroom. Go look at it. It's already there. You don't have to wait. You just go see it. All right, but anyway, I created all these collections manually, and I created a smart collection using the smart collection feature, best of and best of 2016 to show how it worked by date. But one thing I forgot to show is that, and this is a question that actually came up once on social. Someone asked me, well, if I spend all this time making all these folders and getting these folders organized just the way I want, do I have to make all those collections from those folders manually? Like, do I have to do it all, drag them all in, blah, 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 blah? And the answer is no, you don't have to do it well, you do have to do it manually, but you don't have to do it the manual way you're thinking of. You can, sorry about that. Excuse me. You can drag from the folder panel right down to the collection panel to create collections of your folders. So for example, let's say that I want Iceland, Monument Valley, and Page, Arizona. I want those to be collections. Well, if I just drag them down to the collections area, let me let go in the right spot. There we go. Drag them around in the middle there. it'll just create collections from those folders just like that. And they will have all the images in them that they already had. So there's my Iceland images, there's my Monument Valley images, and there's my Page, Arizona images. And again, the best part is that now that these are collections, I can move images around. I can say, well, I don't need 3 of these in a row. Let's go ahead and delete that one, delete that one. Again, not delete, remove it from the collection. And I can arrange and manage and put other images in here, so forth and so on. So I get all the benefits of a collection, but I created it from a folder just by dragging the folders down to the collection area. Boom, that tells Lightroom Classic to make collections, and you're ready to go. Okay, so with that said, yes, I'm okay, Darren. Thanks for asking. Just a little dry throat. That's it. Nothing else. Trust me, nothing else. That's it. All right, so anyway, and I usually have my water here, which I did not bring a water in here. I don't know if I got one down here. Hang on. I don't think I do. All right, my bad. But anyway, let's go ahead. And now that we got, that was the one thing I left off last week. Now let's go to the next thing. Eventually, your collections panel is going to be super long. In other words, if you keep making collections like I'm doing now, I got Iceland favors, I got Monument Valley, Page, Arizona, so forth and so on, travel favors. Eventually, I'm going to just have a collection panel that's 100 collections long, 200 collections long. So now we're going to introduce collection sets. So think of a collection set as a folder of collections. I don't want to use the word folder because that will confuse people. So it's a way to organize collections without having to have them all listed as one. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into the collection panel, and we're just going to simply say, create collection set. So a collection is what we've been working on. We did a smart collection last week. Collection set is organizing collections. So when I say create a collection set, I can say that this one's going to just be called travel, because we got lots of travel things going on. So let's do that, travel. So let's create that. Now that collection set it's got this little triangle next to it, because you can twirl it down to see what's in it, and you twirl it up so it doesn't scroll a mile long. So if I wanted to say that these were my travel collections, and I can drag them into that collection set now I can twirl that up and stop my collections panel from being 2 miles long. Everything's in there. I can still twirl it down and work on each individual collection all I want. I can always drag new collections into that collection set. I can even select the correct collection set when I go to create a new collection. Because I've got the collection set created or selected, it will automatically put that new collection in that collection set. So collection sets are a way for you to have a broad category of collections so that you don't end up with a mile-long collections panel. So does that make sense? So just basically it's a way of organizing your collections. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, now we're gonna do our work. We're gonna pretend like, hey, we've got it all set up now. We got some organization going. We got some of our old images in that we've already organized now. We know how to make collections, do all that stuff. Now we're going to work. We're going to actually do something like we would normally do. So with that said, let me hide Lightroom Classic for a second. I've got this folder, which is the folder we created. Excuse me, the folder we created last week, and it's got all the various folders in it. It's got all the various images in it. This is where we started last week. And I've got this new shoot. Here's a new shoot called Krista Fashion 2022. So February 2022. And it's just the folder could be named whatever. And in this folder, it's got all the images from that shoot that I did as a sample. All right, so now, how do I get this new shoot, this new thing I just did into Lightroom Classic? One of two ways. A, if I had if I shot this on a memory card, I'd put the memory card in right now and just hit it. Well, actually, I wouldn't even have to hit import. It would automatically bring up the import dialog box. I would import those images into a folder on my hard drive in that same structure that we created last week. and everything would be there. Great. But that would be the first way. Second way is I've already copied that folder to the hard drive off the memory card. You just saw it. So how do I get that folder into Lightroom? Well, so we're going to do it the same way we did it last week. So we're going to hide Lightroom Classic just for a second. I'm going to now drag this into my organization where it goes. So it's portraits, so it's going to go in the portraits folder. In the portraits folder, I've already got Alina, Jennifer, Kiana. So I'm going to drag it into the portraits folder for organization because that's where it lives. That's where it should go. That's where it's going to stay on my hard drive, whether it's my internal hard drive, external hard drive, network drive, wherever it is, that's where these images are going to live. Now that it's there, if I go back to Lightroom, nothing happened. If I go into the portraits folder, let's get out of landscapes, let's get out of travel, let's go to portraits. It doesn't know it's there because, like I said, it's not monitoring folders. It's basically you brought them in. It knows where those images were that you brought in, but it's not looking for new things to come in. You have to import them. So how can I import them? I could do it one of two ways. I could hit the import dialog box in the bottom left behind me here. So there's an import button right here. I could hit that, navigate to the folder, find the folder, tell it to import, add, so forth and so on, since it's already where it's supposed to be. Or there's a much faster way. I can just simply drag that folder right onto the Lightroom Classic icon. And that will bring up the import dialog box. And it does know exactly where, see where it is? It knows exactly where it is. It's in the same place as the rest. And it brings them up. It already knows since they're on the hard drive already, I probably just want to add them. I don't need to copy them. I don't need to move them. I don't need to do anything like that. And so step one, it knows where they are. Step two, it's letting me pick which ones I want to bring in. I want to bring them all in, but if there were some like the shutter didn't fire or the flash didn't fire or they didn't look the way they should look, you could uncheck them and not bring them in. But keep in mind, they're still there in that folder, even though Lightroom doesn't see them. And then last but not least, over here on the right-hand side, you're just adding additional aspects or features to what you're bringing in. So for example, one of the first things I always do when I'm bringing in images is I build smart previews. I'll talk about why in a minute, but let me get in first. But I do have that checked all the time. Building previews. Right now, what's the difference between previews and smart previews? Well, in the previews area, which let me zoom out and zoom in properly there. In the previews area, you have a choice. Minimal, embedded, plus, and the sidecar, standard, meaning use the embedded preview, standard preview, and one-to-one. One-to-one is, think of that as the best possible preview you can get. That's a one-to-one preview, full resolution. It looks the way it's supposed to look. Minimal means I'm going to just bring in a thumbnail size preview so you'll know what the image is. And then I'll build a regular preview when you click on that image and make it full size. So I refer to this as the preview tax. The preview tax is a tax you're going to pay one way or the other. You're just deciding when to pay it. So do you want to pay it now? Go to one-to-one. Because if I build one-to-one previews now, that will make the biggest preview I could need, and it's going to take time to do it now. Meaning the import's going to take longer because it's going to have to build those previews after the images are in. It's going to, you see a progress bar while it's building all those previews. I don't build them up front because I may look at a thumbnail and say, well, I know I don't want that image, and I'll never zoom in on it. So why build a preview for an image I'm never going to zoom in on? So I build minimal previews up front, and I pay the preview tax each time I click on an image and go full screen. So I prefer to pay my tax later. It's totally up to you. All right, obviously don't import suspected duplicates. In other words, if it's a duplicate image from, you put the card in, you brought some images in, you went and shot some more on the card, you put the card back in and brought those new images in, don't bring in the images that were already on the card that you already brought in. All right, so that one stays checked. Now I could say right here on the fly, add them to a collection, because again, we know we don't like to work in folders, we like to work in collections. So I could say, yep, build a collection right here on the fly. And you're going to say, well, wait, what collection what collection do these go into? It doesn't exist yet because we haven't made it. So we're going to make a new collection called Krista, February 2022. And we're not going to put it in a collection set because we don't have that collection set yet. And then we're going to go ahead and create it. And now that collection's been created. It'll be in the collections panel when we're there, and these images will be in it. All right, last but not least, what to apply, if anything, after, how can I delete smart previews? You would select the images and then go up to the menu where the previews are and say remove smart previews. That's how you delete them. All right, anyway, develop settings. If I had like a developed set that I wanted to apply, like some people have always asked me, well, you always apply an auto tone, or you always apply a portrait, not preset, a portrait, not filter, not preset, the other one I'm not thinking of the name of. But anyway, you always apply these. Can you apply them during import? Yes, if you go build a develop preset for those things you want to apply, then you could choose it here. But you'd have to do that up front. All right, and then I always apply my copyright metadata. So I've shown people in the past how to build these. If you didn't have one, if yours just said none and you want to go make one right here on the fly, you could click new. I'm going to hit edit so you can see what's in mine. And then anything you want in your copyright preset can go here. So for example, because I haven't chosen the one I want to choose. There it is. All right, so for example, copyright, Terry White 2022, copyrighted, where I'm based, my website, so forth and so on. So if you want all of that to be embedded in the metadata as those images come in, you can choose that copyright right off the bat. All right, so now this should go quick because it doesn't have to copy anything off the hard drive. Off the memory card. They're already on the hard drive. They're already where they're supposed to be. We took care of that up front in the operating system. So now all we're doing is adding them to Lightroom. So now we'll just go ahead and click import. And again, look at how fast that goes. Boom, it's done. It's done importing. Now it's just building the smart previews. So it imported those, how many ever, 225 images. And it goes that fast because it didn't have to do any copying function. They're already on the hard drive. There's nothing it had to do. So the argument has always been, do I import from a memory card, which has to copy them to the hard drive and then bring them into Lightroom? Or do I manually put them on the hard drive first and import them into Lightroom? Which one's faster? And I've had product managers in the past tell me that this method was faster. In other words, the copy operation in the operating system from the memory card to the folder is faster than what Lightroom does. I've not benchmarked it personally, and that was years ago, so I don't know if that's still the case, but you now know both ways you can do it. All right, so and anytime you see a progress bar up here, that's usually happening in the background, so I don't have to wait for that even though it's done. If that was not done, I could just go ahead and keep working and start working right off the bat. Okay, so now these images are in, and by the way, there's the collection they're in. So I don't need, and here's the folder letting me know that they're in the right folder. There it is. So I brought in those 225 images in the portraits folder, in the Krista Fashion February 2022 folder. And now I can hide the hard drive because I'm done with it. I don't need to touch the hard drive anymore. There's nothing to organize on the hard drive. Everything's where it's supposed to be. Leave the hard drive alone. All right, now let's go and work in collections. Okay, so now that I've got these images in the collection, well, there will be one more time you'll use the hard drive. Let me back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. There's one thing you'll do in the hard drive first. Let's go back to that folder that we just brought in. There's one thing that you do in the hard drive or in the folder that you don't do in the collection, and that is get rid of rejects. Rejects are images that you are not going to ever use. They're bad. The eyes were closed. The flash didn't fire. The image is totally out of focus. It's blurry. It's all these things. In other words, it's a reject. It's an image. It's a mistake. You've got a better one. Why would you keep the mistake? So in those cases, you're going to want to get rid of those images. So we're going to walk through that process first in the folder, then we'll get into organizing in the collection. All right, so, and let me do one thing really quickly here. I noticed there was there was one that had been yellow label on it before I had these in another catalog. Okay, so now they're all good to go. Okay, so let's pretend to walk through that process of, I did my shoot, I brought in 225 images, I want to go through, get rid of rejects, pick my favorites, so forth and so on. So let's walk through that now. All right, will you talk about finding missing images in Lightroom Classic? Not in this class, because you shouldn't have any missing images at this point in this class, because this is about setting up Lightroom from scratch properly. If you have missing images, that was already covered in another class of how to fix Lightroom disasters and things like that. So not in this class. David, go look at one of my other classes where I do cover that topic. All right, let's go on. All right, so how would I want to now go through these images and figure out which ones I want to keep, which ones I don't? Now, there's different views. So far, we've only worked in grid view. So grid view is the letter G on the keyboard for grid. If I want to get into loop view, it's the letter E as in Edward, and that will take me into loop view, and I can look at this image. And this was like one of the, I think this was a test shot, I can't remember. But anyway, I could see a softbox hanging out there. And now, if that was all that was wrong with this image, I could crop out the softbox, I could Photoshop out the softbox, I could get rid of the softbox and keep the image. But let's pretend that this is an image we don't want. So we start now going through the process of marking images as rejects, flags, which are, flag is a reject is a form of a flag, stars, and color labels. So let me explain what each one is, and then you determine what you want to use them for. Terry, you are getting rid of rejects, but do they stay on hard drive? We're going to cover that, Ozzy, in just a few seconds. All right, so anyway, this is a reject. Let's pretend it's a reject. I don't want it. So down here at the bottom, and I'm missing one. Hang on, let's get to color labels. There we go. Down here at the bottom of the screen, you've got two flags. You've got a pick flag and a reject flag. And all of these can be done with keyboard shortcuts. So letter P, letter X. Then you've got stars, 0 stars, which is what we have now, 1 through 5. And again, from the keyboard, 1 through 5 will give it a star. Then you've got color labels, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this one doesn't have a keyboard shortcut. So you can apply color labels. Now, what you use those for is totally up to you. I'll give you what I use them for. You can use my method. You can make your own. I don't care. They're there. 3 methods of culling and picking images. You use them any way you want. Now, the one that's pretty unanimous and obvious is that a reject is a reject, no matter what your system is. So if I hit the letter X and mark that as a reject, when I go back out to the grid, it will have, number 1, it will have the reject flag in the upper left corner so I can see it visually. And number 2, it dims the photo. So the photo's kind of grayed out. So that's letting me know right off the visually that that's a reject. So rejects are rejects or rejects no matter what your system is. Now, what do I use the other ones for? So let's go to the next photo. I'm hitting the right arrow on the keyboard to go to the next photo. Let's say that I like this photo. Just again, pretending. I'm not saying I do or don't. I'm just going through the process. Let's say I like this photo. Then how do I tell myself later that I like this photo? In other words, how do I go back and see the photos I liked? That's what all the other things are for. So I could mark it with a pick. I could say the letter P and mark it as a pick, and then go back and find all my picks, which are the white flags, and those will be all the ones I like. By the way, if you hit the letter U, you can unflag an image. So hitting the letter U, remove the flag. Oh, hang on. Hold on. There we go. I hit the letter T by mistake, which turns off the toolbar. Okay, so P and X for pick and reject. So pick would be one way I could do it. I can also say, oh my God, I really like this image, 5 stars. Hit 5, because we're used to a 5-star rating is something we really like. Oh, I really like it, but there's one thing I need to fix in it. 4-star rating. It's okay. 3-star rating. If you're marking things 1 or 2 stars, I would start to question why. I know they're there. You can use them. I can hit the letter 1, and this could be a 1-star photo, but what's a 1-star photo? For me, a 1-star photo would be a reject. So I already have a reject flag. Why would I need to mark it 1 star? 2 stars, it's almost a reject. It's almost bad. Like, I don't get 1 or 2 stars. Either you like the photo or you don't. Either the photo's okay, good, or great. It's almost okay. Like, I don't get 1 or 2 stars, but that's on you. If you want, you have the choice of 1, 2, or 3, 4, or 5 stars. All right, so I can say 5 stars, and that's great. If I don't want a star rating, I can hit the letter or the number 0, and that will take it out. Now, the other one is color labels, and you can assign whatever method you want to each color. So a 6 could be, it's red hot, it's amazing. A 7 could be, I kind of like it. An 8 can be, wow, this is approved by the client, it's green. A 9 could be, it's, I don't know, it's blue. The makeup artist likes it. Whatever your method is, you can use color, and you don't have a number for the last one, so you'd have to click on it. So I click on purple, and it will be purple. Now, when you do a color label, it actually puts that color on the background of the image in the grid, so you can visually see that. Without 1 or 2 stars, how would you get to 5 stars? Agreed. But we're talking about why would you actually use them? That's a different question. All right, so color label. So I've given you all 3. Flags, which really is pick. Stars, you use whatever method you want. I gave you 3, 4, 5 as my method. And then color labels, which you can assign to any purpose you want. And by the way, it could be all 3. This could be a pick, it could be a 5-star, and purple. So it could be all 3 of those things, or any 2, or any combinations of those things. So any photo can have any one or multiples of those categories that you're rating your images for. Now, let me tell you my method, and then again, you'll hopefully can see how to create your own or use mine. If this were a photo I liked, let's give it 0. Let's unflag it, and let's take the color purple off, which I'd have to do that manually. So let's go back and take the color purple off. Okay, so I haven't done anything yet, but let's say I like this photo. If I like it, I'm going to hit the letter or hit the number 8. Because one day, years ago, I decided that I wanted to assign a color label to photos that I like, so I used green, and I've just never changed. So green means that I liked it. If it's one that let's go to this next one. If it's one that the makeup artist liked, then I usually do a 7. If it's one that the model or the talent liked, then I usually do a blue. That's it. Those are my colors. I don't use the red or the purple very often. That could, I just don't have a purpose for them. Now, what happens if we're standing, like 3 of us are standing there and we're going through the photos, I'm like hitting the right arrow, and everybody says, wow, at the same time. Is it a green? Is it a yellow? Is it a blue? Well, I listen for who said it first, and if I still can't determine, then I'll just go ahead and mark it green, because I liked it too. And then if everyone liked it, then I would do green and 5 stars. Because that means that's a killer photo. Everyone liked it. I love it. Everyone loves it. That's the photo. That's one of the great choices. That's it. So then what's the pick flag for? I gave you stars. I usually do 5 or 4 stars. I gave you my color label system, green, yellow, or blue. Then when would I use a pick flag? There's one reason I would use a pick flag. And the pick flag, I reserve the pick flag for the client. If the model is the client and I send the model a gallery and he or she sends me back their favorites, then I immediately go back and mark those as picks because that's what the client picked. If I'm the client, meaning it's my shot for me to use and no one else makes the decision but me, then I'll use the pick because those are my favorites. Plus I can use green or 5 stars, but if no one else is involved, I'll use a pick flag for me as well. So my pick flag is for the decision maker, the client, the paying person, the person that's like contracted the job, for them to decide which ones they want. That's what my picks are for. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. So let's say that Krista really liked this shot, and this is one of hers, so I hit the letter P. So that's a pick. Now, usually I give the client a certain number of things contractually, or if we're doing a just fun shoot, I give them a number that they can use, like a number of images they can pick. So let's say she gets 10. Then I know I'm never going to have more than 10 picks because she only gets 10. So pick your 10 favorite images from the whole shoot, all the looks, all the everything, and I'll have 10 picks at the end of the day. Now, that might mean I still have a bunch of yellows and a bunch of blues and a bunch of greens. I was definitely going to have some greens because I'm picking my favorites too, and they don't always agree. They don't always align with what the client picked. So maybe I like this one. So that's going to be a number 8. And I like the one she picked too. That's going to be a number 8. So it could be a pick and green. I liked it. She liked it. Great. And she chose it to retouch. That's the one she wants. So then we would go through. Let's say she likes this one. We'll do a pick there. And again, I'm just guessing. Oh, and by the way, let me finish the actual process. Let's go back. Now that we know the system, let's go back and start over. So loop view. And you can hit the right arrow key to take you to the next photo, and then you can hit whatever number or letter you want for a pick, reject, flag, number, star, whatever it is, except for purple, because you have to click that one manually, which is why I don't use purple, because I don't have a key assigned to it. And then away you go. So I would go through these, and let's say I don't like this one because she's looking too far off camera. So I mark that as a reject. Now, loop view has been the way we've done it for years, but you have another view that's even better. So if you hit the letter F as in full screen, you can go full screen and not have to worry about all the stuff around it. Now, when you go through the photos, you still have the ability to press all the letters and numbers we talked about. So if this is a reject, I can hit the letter X, and I saw the brief reject thing pop up at the bottom to confirm that I hit the letter. Reject. And I'm just, again, there's nothing wrong with these. I have to mark some as rejects because I have to for the class. Reject, because her eyes are definitely too far over. That would be a reject in my opinion. I don't like the way I cut off her fingers, so that would be a reject from the photographer standpoint. I don't like the photography in that one. I don't like the way her arm is cut off, so that's a reject. So now I'm being nitpicky about my own work. I don't like her fingers being cut off again. Reject, 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 reject. No amputees. There we go. That's good. That's okay. It's okay. Don't like the arm cut off. So now I'm just going through the photos, hitting the right arrow each time, and marking whatever I want. Reject. And again, I'm just being nitpicky. Let's say I like this one, so I'll hit the number 8 for green. All right, and if I don't hit anything, it's okay. I just didn't choose it for any reason. So you don't have to give every photo a rating. And I'll tell you why in a minute. All right, so let's see. This one, the eyes look almost closed, so reject. It's off center, too much, reject. That one's better, that one's actually, okay, so now I run into 2 photos that are almost identical. This one's off a little bit, so I'll reject that one because I got a better one. So I can go back and forth and say, oh, well, I've got a better one, reject the one before that one. Okay, I think she was in the middle of getting ready to move her hand, so that's a reject because that's not really a pose. Reject. Now again, soft boxes in there, the roll of papers on the top of her head, those things can be fixed, so I'm going to leave those. Okay, cool, cool. Don't like the eyes there. She's playing now. This one looks out of focus. Reject, reject, reject. All right. That one just looks a little too much. Like she's pulling something out of her mouth there. Reject. Hands cut off. Reject. I had no idea she was doing that many poses with her tongue. But anyway. All right. And I like this one. 8. Reject. Again, if I see something that can be fixed, I don't mark it a reject because I can fix it. And I'm just quickly going through these so I can get to the end so I can see the process at the end. All right, hang on. Let's go back. Don't like that one. That looks like mid pose. Don't like, actually that one's okay. So I hit a reject by mistake, hit the letter U to unflag it. Just don't like that one. I like that one. I like that one. Now again, this is nothing to say that this is not judging the editing that hasn't been done yet. This is just judging the things that are photography-wise. The lighting, that if it can't be fixed or can't be adjusted, the pose, the eyes, the things that can't be fixed or look good, that's what I'm either marking good or reject. Okay, so now I'm done. I went through them all and I marked everything that I wanted. Let's pretend I did. I didn't, but let's pretend I did. And now, so some of them are rejects, some of them are picks, some of them are just nothing. They're just okay. Like, I don't want to get rid of them. I don't necessarily want to use them. They're just there. Now what? And this is why I said we stay in the folder for this one part. Because now it's time to say goodbye to the rejects. So someone asked earlier, when you get rid of the rejects, do they stay on the hard drive? We're about to answer that question right now. So now I've gone through 225 photos and I picked some that I liked, but I picked a lot that I don't want, meaning I'm never going to use. I don't want, they're dead to me, like I just will never do anything with them. So in Lightroom Classic, you have a keyboard shortcut. On the Mac, it's Command Delete. On PC, it's Control Backspace. Command Delete, Control Backspace on PC will bring up this dialog box. Do you want to delete the 33 rejected master photos from the disk or just remove them from Lightroom? So this is where you get to decide if you are confident in your choices or not. And I always make this joke. If you're an adult, if you're like, in other words, if you're not chicken, meaning, well, I don't know. I don't know if I really want to get rid of them, then why'd you mark it as a reject? That's all. That would be my retort back to you. If you're not sure, then don't mark it as a reject. A reject says, I'm sure that this photo is bad and I'm never going to use it. If the question comes up, well, I might, they may, if you're indecisive, then don't mark it as a reject. That's simple as that. So these are rejects I know I do not want, so I never, ever, ever hit remove from Lightroom. I hit delete from disk. Because when you hit delete from disk, that not only removes them from Lightroom, it takes them out of that folder and throws them in your operating system trash or recycle bin. So the next time you empty your recycle bin, they are gone. They are no longer taking up space. They are gone. So that's another thing, to be sure that you're marking rejects as rejects and not just plain, I kind of don't like it. Then if you kind of don't like it, but you might like it, then don't mark it as a reject. All right, so if I hit delete from disk, which is the way I always do it, I never ever take the chicken way out. If I hit delete from disk, this is why you do this in a folder, because if you do this in a collection, you can't delete from disk. That's why. Delete, they're gone. So now instead of 233, I have 192. Now I can get out of the folder, because those 192 are the same as the collection. Because if it's deleted everywhere. It's deleted from the folder, it's deleted from the collection, it's gone. They're in the trash, they're gone for good. And well, once you empty the trash, they're gone for good. Okay, so now I can go work in the collection. Now I can go do the things I want to do to the photos in terms of organization. So I'm left with the okays and the goods, because I got rid of the bads. The bads were the rejects. So now let's say I want to decide what to edit. Well, obviously I'd want to edit the pics because those are the ones the client chose. And then I might want to edit mine because those are the ones I chose. So that's where the filtering at the very top of Lightroom Classic comes in. You have filtering based on text. You could type in keywords. You could type in things you want to filter on. You have filters based on attributes of the photo. In this case, these attributes that we just went through. You have metadata you can filter on. I can say, give me all the ones that that were shot with a particular lens, a particular camera on a particular day, on a particular lens, whatever. You can do that. And then none. So we're going to go back to attribute. And we're going to say, give me all the pics. Great. There's got to be more than that, unless I'm, hang on. Hold on. Wait, something is not, something else is chosen. I do have more than one pic, right? Or don't I? Oh, maybe I don't. Because I was like, wait, shouldn't there be more than one? I thought I picked more than one thing. Maybe I didn't. All right, so let's go give some pics. I might have undid them while I was explaining because I'm like, this should be more than one. So I'm just going to randomly mark some pics. All right, let's mark that a pic. And let's go in and mark that. Okay, so now I got more pics. Now I can go up and say, yeah, there we go. Show me all the pics. There's only showing me one. I was like, I got more than one. All right, great. Show me all the pics. And if I say show me all the pics and greens, those are mine. If I say show me just the greens, those are mine. If I say show me just the pics, those are hers. And some are mine. So you could do it either way you want. I want, first and foremost, the one she wants, the pics. So I'm going to select all, how many of these there are. How many, let's see, how many do we have? 7 of these. And now that I got all 7 of those selected, what I don't want to have to keep doing is I don't want to have to keep filtering. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm filtering for all the pics. I'm filtering for all the greens. I'm filtering for all the 5 stars. I don't want to have to keep doing that. Every time I come back to this collection of 192 photos, I don't want to have to say, oh my God, which ones were hers again? Oh yeah, the ones with the pics. Oh yeah, which ones were mine again? The ones that are green. I don't want to have to keep doing that. So once I identify the ones that she wants and the ones that I want, I send them to a collection. We haven't made that collection yet, so let's go make it. So I got 7 photos selected. These are hers so far. I'm going to click Create Collection. And when you create a collection with photos already selected, you get a choice of Include Selected Photos. So in other words, make a collection of these 7 photos. So I'm going to call it Krista, February 2022, Edits. So this is the difference between the main gallery, which is 192 photos, and these, which would just be the 7 so far, edits. Great. Create that new collection, and there it is with 7 photos in it. Fantastic. Next, let's go back to the other ones because I'm not done yet. Let's filter one more time. Filter. Not the pics, I want the greens, which may include some pics. That's okay. So now I'm going to select all the greens, which some of them are pics, and drag those into the edits. And it can't put the same photo in a collection twice. So that's why it's okay to do it in multiple passes, because even though 3 of these are pics, they're already in the collection. So it won't add them again. They're already there. So now when I go in, these are the 11 photos to edit. These are the 11 that constitute what I liked, what she liked, and what we both liked in some cases. All right. So there we go. Now we're done with our choices and her choices. And we have them in a new collection. And that new collection is independent of anything else. So whatever I do here in terms of organization only happens here. So if I say, for example, that this was the best photo, I want to work on it first, I can drag that one up front. That does not change anything else. It does not change the original collection they were in. It does not change the folder at all. It only changes this one collection. Great, so now this is the photo that I want to work on first. Next, now that we culled, we made our choices, we put them in a new collection, we can now do our editing. And then there's only a couple things left, editing and delivery. So let's say we're not going to get, of course, get to edit all these photos. But let's say I want to edit this one, and there was another one I wanted to edit. Oh, we'll do this one. Okay, I want to edit this one. All right, so now let's do this first one. Hit the, well, I can hit the letter D for develop, or just click on develop. And then I start going through the kinds of things I want to do first. So first and foremost, I might fix the white, let's hear it, by the way, let's reset this one because it might already have some edits on it. Reset. Okay, great. It's good. All right, so next, I might want to fix the white balance on it. So I just click the white balance eyedropper anywhere where it should be white, gray, or black. So gray would be what I'd be looking for, but I know this image doesn't have anything gray in it. Now, the next thing I still may do is I still may adjust the temperature manually to kind of cool this image off just a little bit more. And I may also reduce the vibrance in this photo a little bit more. And I'm just looking at skin tone here. I'm just getting the skin tone the way I want it. Take the saturation down to 0. Great. All right, so now I got that kind of the way I want. The next thing I want to do is I want to increase the blacks in this photo, or the shadows actually, because the dress is starting to fill in, like in other words, become solid black. I'm just going to go ahead and adjust the shadows in this photo just a little bit higher. Great. And I usually always hit auto, but I'm just showing you some things I would do manually first. All right, now normally I would hit auto first and then adjust manually, but I'm just showing you can adjust either way. Now I would also, I forgot to do this, I would also choose the profile, that's the word I was looking for earlier, to do a portrait profile. And I would do that first because that would set the foundation. All right, so now let's undo all of this. Let's reset it. Because I kind of gave you that random edit that we all do at first. We would just start picking things without going in a specific order. Now let's go in a specific order. So the specific order would be first I choose the profile. Portrait, that sets my foundation. Great. Next, I would hit auto. I would let it auto tone the photo. I may like it, I may not. I probably won't like certain things. But I let auto do what it wants to do first. Now that auto's done its thing, it did fix some things that I did want it to fix, but it made some things worse that I didn't want it to do. So for example, vibrance, I'm going to try both of these down at 0 first, and then I'm going to take them down even further. Maybe saturation down, because I think it makes her skin a little too orangey. All right, next, I can go ahead and then fix that white balance. And then if I need to bring the saturation back, I can, but I think that's about where I want it to be. Okay, great. So see, that way you're not undoing things because you're doing them out of order. In other words, if I move a bunch of sliders and then hit auto, auto is just going to move a bunch of sliders that I probably already moved. So, and if I hit profile after, then profile is going to make the image look different as well. So that's why you do things in an order that is kind of already laid out. If you look at the order of the panel, profiles first, white balance is next, auto's next, and then manual adjustments. So if you kind of do the panel in order, it'll go faster that way because you won't keep undoing things that you already did because you picked the next thing that undoes it. All right, so that would be one way to edit. Now, another thing I notice up here is that we have this histogram, which by the way is completely adjustable as well. This histogram warning is letting me know that this white triangle means that in certain areas of the photo that just turned blue, that those areas are completely filled in, meaning that they're solid black. There's no detail in them whatsoever. So I could also just drag right under that triangle to the right until that triangle turns gray, meaning I fixed the problem. If I hover over it now, nothing's turning blue. Now again, that's at the top. So you might want to do that first, or certainly after an auto, because it's going to adjust the, we'll do it after an auto because it's going to adjust the shadows and blacks, or the black slider in this case. All right, so now that could be the edit that I did for that. Next up, let's do one more edit. So let's do it in order. We're going to do profile. We're going to fix the white balance. We're going to hit auto. And I'm just going to bring that vibrance back down. and bring the saturation back down. Great. Now I'm going to hit crop because I don't want that roll of paper at the top there. Perfect. Done. All right. You could keep doing that, but in a lot of cases, you're just doing the same things photo after photo. So let's talk about batch, which is what Lightroom Classic is also great at. Let's say that, hey, these photos are very similar, especially these two, but let's say I want to kind of adjust these next 4 or 5 the same way. Well, when you select multiple photos and then you head to develop, this is usually set to sync by default because if you've never touched it, it's on sync. There's a little light switch. You're going to flip the light switch up. You're going to turn it on auto sync because what auto sync says is whatever you do to the first photo you've got selected, it does it to all the photos you've got selected. So now if I go in and I say, make this a portrait, make this, fix the white balance on this one. Let's go ahead and do auto. And again, I don't like the color on this, so let's go ahead and bring the vibrance down a bit. There we go. Actually, just bring the vibrance down. Let's bring it back where I want it to be. And I can always go in and do individual things, but now that went ahead and adjusted all 5 photos the same way. So all 5 photos got that same treatment that I now don't have to worry about doing except for that one. That was not one of the ones that was selected. So that's the difference. You can see that one versus this one. All right, so now if I still want to go in and adjust individual photos, I can. So I can go back to this one and say, oh, but this one needs cropping. I can go ahead and crop this one down a little bit. Great. Okay, so now let's say, and we got 2 things left and we got 4 minutes to do it in. So let's say that we need to do something that Lightroom doesn't do or doesn't do well enough. Let's say that I don't like this feather or I want another copy of that feather, whatever the case is. Lightroom doesn't do a good job of cloning. It doesn't do a good job of intricate healing and removal. So that's when I might go to Photoshop for something like that. So to get to Photoshop with this photo, keep in mind, this is a RAW file. If it were a JPEG, I would get a choice. Because it's a RAW file, I won't even get a choice. It's going to open up a copy. If it's a JPEG, it's going to ask you, do you want to open up a copy? I'm going to choose right-click, edit in Photoshop. Or Command-E. Control-E on Windows. That will automatically open it up in Photoshop as a copy. Now that it's done that, I can do anything I want. I can duplicate the layer. I can go into my, my clone stamp tool. Hit the letter S, make my brush a little bit bigger, give me another new layer to clone from, sample all layers, great, and I can go ahead and say sample this feather, option click, and then come over here and start cloning it. Now again, I can't do this in Lightroom. I don't have layers in Lightroom. I don't have anything like this in Lightroom to be able to do this. Let's say I don't want this one. So I could do the same thing. I could either use the spot healing brush or clone stamp or any number of other methods. And I can go back to that copy and I can say, oh, you know what? I don't want this one at all. And I can remove it. I wouldn't, but I could. Like I wouldn't remove that because it kind of throws the whole outfit off balance. But I could. And so now when I save this, and it's saving, multiple layers takes a little bit longer. Once it's saved and I close it, it saved it as a Photoshop file and put it right next to the original in Lightroom. So the original's there. Here's the original, DNG. Here's the Photoshop file with the extra feather and the feather removed. So you have your choice to do anything you want and edit either way you want. All right, so now let's say I'm done with that photo. I don't need both of these in this collection, so I can delete one. It just deletes it from the collection. I can delete the original and keep the Photoshop file. Now, last but not least, I got 1 minute left. Let's talk about output. So let's say we edited these files, and now I want to output them and give them to someone. That's what export is. You have export, and you also have email photos. You can either do it either way. So I can hit export, and I can set up how I want to export these photos out. So I want to export these out to my desktop. I guess we haven't done that yet. All right. So let's go to the desktop. Great. Let's put them in a new folder called LRC Crash Course. And I want to output these as JPEGs, no matter what format they were, PSD, RAW file, whatever. I want to output them as sRGB, and I want the quality to be 100. I want them to be a good quality, but I want the size to be limited to, I do want to resize. I want the size to be limited to the size recommended for Instagram, which is 1080 pixels on the longest edge, and it's 72 pixels per inch. Okay, great. Don't sharpen, don't do anything, and I only want my copyright and contact info, no extra metadata, and show me when you're done. Now, when I hit export, it's gonna show me those 7 photos. Once it's done exporting, boom, there they are, and each one is 1080 pixels on the longest edge, and they're JPEGs, and they're ready to send to the client and ready to do whatever I want. And last but not least, if I have a second before I get cut off, export one more time, and you can add this as a preset for exporting for IG. And that way you can just choose that preset next time without ever having to do it manually. All right, with that said, cheers everybody. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the crash course, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye everybody.